Hi again, everyone, and welcome to our World Series report. I'm Len Berman, and as the Boston Red Sox get ready to take on the New York Mets in the World Series, I am joined by Bobby Valentine, the manager of the Texas Rangers and a former coach with the New York Mets, and by Chuck Tanner, the manager of the Atlanta Braves and a World Series champion when he managed the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1979. And gentlemen, the first question has to be, with two unbelievably dramatic and exciting playoff series, how do we possibly top it?
You top it because it is the World Series, Len, and what you're dealing with is two great teams that never said die the entire year. Boston knows how to come back. They know how to play good, hard baseball, and the Mets have won more games than anybody in baseball. So I think we have a great series, and I'm excited.
Chuck?
Well, the best way to explain it, it's a new season. They played 162 games. They went through the playoffs. They're the two best teams in baseball, and somebody's going to go home with a broken heart. There's only going to be one winner.
All right, let's start off by taking a look at that amazing National League Championship Series. After dominating the National League throughout the regular season, the Mets went to Houston intent on doing the same to the Astros. But in Game 1, it was the home team that did the dominating, especially Houston pitcher Mike Scott, who thoroughly confused and infuriated the Mets with a split-fingered fastball that the Mets thought was more illegal than unhittable. The lone run of the game came courtesy of Glenn Davis, who continued his home run hitting ways of '86. He nailed a Dwight Gooden pitch in the second inning. Scott finished the game by setting a championship series strikeout record. But the next night, the Mets rallied behind Bob Ojeda and even the series thanks to a rather routine 5-1 win. With the series tied, the scene shifted to New York. But the hometown fans were silenced by the Astros' Bill Doran, whose two-run homer in the second inning off Mets starter Ron Darling gave Houston and Bob Knepper a 4-0 lead. Then in the sixth, with the Mets trailing 4-1, Darryl Strawberry delivered a monumental three-run homer, which suddenly and dramatically tied the game. But the Astros rallied to take a 5-4 lead into the ninth. And when Houston manager Hal Lanier went with his top reliever Dave Smith, the Mets put their faith in Lenny Dykstra.
And a high fly ball hit the right field. It is fairly deep. It's way back by the wall. He did it! It's a home run! A home run! The Mets win the ball game!
But the magnificent Mike Scott returned for Game 4. And when he was through, the Mets were 3-1 losers, who seemed more concerned about the condition of the balls than they did about the series being tied at 2 games apiece. Game 5 went into extra innings before Gary Carter's second hit of the series became his second game-winning hit as the Mets came away with a dramatic 2-1 win. So it was back to Texas for Game 6, where the Astros came through right away with 3 runs in the first inning. But the Mets rallied to tie the score in the ninth and went ahead in the top of the 14th before Jesse Orosco gave up a stirring home run to Billy Hatcher, which tied the game once more. The Mets then scored 3 times in the top of the 16th, but the Astros battled back to within a run.
The pitch on the way. Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! Struck him out! Struck him out! Mets win it! The Mets have won it! They're in the World Series!
Unbelievable. I was there for that entire game, and I still don't believe it. Was it one of the greatest games ever, Chuck?
No question about it. But you look into the dugouts, Lanier's sad, Johnson's happy. The biggest thing about it shows one thing. There's no time clock.
Right.
You can't lay on the ball. You can't go into a 4-corner and stall. You have to get 3 outs in the last inning, and the big lefty for the Mets did it by striking out Bass with the tying run on second. It was just unbelievable.
You're right, and without a clock, it went 16 innings, longest postseason game ever. And one of the keys for the Mets, I thought, they did not start Dykstra and Backman with the lefty Knepper pitching, but they got them in late in the game, and they delivered, as they did throughout the series, some important hits for the Mets.
Well, all year long, Dykstra and Bachman, they were the bullets in the gun. And when they fired, everything happened right for the Mets. And when you went over 100 ball games, those two were the catalysts.
Well, the American League Championship Series did not lack for excitement, particularly Game 5, which was really a thing of beauty. Just one strike away from the World Series, and it all fell apart for Gene Mauch and the Angels.
A real roller coaster ride, being on the top and ready to celebrate. Top step, Gene Mauch, Reggie Jackson, run out on the field. The roller coaster went down, and they ended on the downswing. Gene Mauch might have another chance someday. Reggie Jackson probably won't ever have another chance of getting in the World Series, and I'm saddened by that fact.
As a fellow manager, though, for Gene Mauch, he had a chance to get rid of the ghosts of Philadelphia in '64 and with the Angels in '82 against Milwaukee. So close.
Yeah, that one pitch and that one hitter away, and hopefully he'll have another chance, but it won't be in the American League West because that's where the Texas Rangers play.
Okay. Well, coming up on our World Series report, we will take a look at previous World Series appearances for the Red Sox and the Mets, and we will also start looking at the matchups for this year's World Series. We'll be right back.
There it goes, a long drive. If it stays fair, home run.
Welcome back to our World Series report. And before we get to the matchups for this year's World Series, let's take a little walk through history. Both of these teams have rich traditions, even though the Mets have only been around for 25 years. But both franchises have been involved in some memorable World Series. Now, do you know the last time the teams representing New York and Boston met in the World Series? Right, 1912. Just like this year, the key matchup then featured pitchers. For the Red Sox, it was Smokey Joe Wood. And for the New York Giants, Christy Mathewson. Wood came out on top, winning 3 games, including the 7th game, when the Sox scored twice in the bottom of the 9th to win it 3-2. The Sox won the series again in 1915, 16, and 18, but haven't won since, although they came close in 1946 and 1967, losing both times to the Cardinals in 7 games. The Mets have gone to the series twice in their 25-year history. The first time was 1969, when they startled everyone by going from 9th place also-rans to world champions, as they beat the heavily favored Baltimore Orioles in 5 games. But things weren't so amazing in 1973, when the Mets survived a mediocre season and then upset the Cincinnati Reds, only to fall in 7 games to the powerful Oakland A's. The last time the Red Sox were in the series was 1975, when Boston battled Cincinnati in what many people now consider one of the greatest series of all time. Once again, it went 7 games, but the Sox came up short again, losing the finale at home 4-3. And what a World Series that one was. But how do these two teams stack up for the 1986 World Series? Well, let's start our matchups now with the infields. First of all, for Boston, at first base, Bill Buckner. Marty Barrett at second. Spike Owen at short. Wade Boggs, the third baseman. For the Mets, Keith Hernandez at first. Wally Backman at second, although Tim Tuffle hit against left-handed pitching. Rafael Santana, the shortstop. Ray Knight at third base. Mets infield, Chuck.
Santana and Backman, the best-kept secret in the league. Nobody gives them any credit. They just go out there and do the job every day, make the big double play, help the pitchers out in the clutch. Backman, offensively, is a pesky little rascal. He's going to get on, but he'll drag it, he'll push it, he'll keep the infield honest. Keith Hernandez, the best defensive first baseman I've ever seen play the game. Offensively, a pure 300 hitter. Ray Knight, the warhorse at third, a hard-working winner. Does know nothing but put his nose right in the dirt and plays it all. Defensively, does an outstanding job. Boston will not bunt against them. They like to sacrifice. They're not going to steal the bases. And with Keith and Ray, they're going to capture them every time that they try to bunt that ball, and the defense is going to be the difference.
Call off the World Series with that infield. What about the Red Sox, Bobby?
I agree with Chuck. They have an outstanding corner. Wade Boggs, though, in the American League is very good with Boston. I think their deficiency is at first base. If Baylor plays any, he's very deficient. Buckner's hurt and doesn't throw very well. But Buckner, as Hernandez, is a 300 lifetime type of guy. He was under that this year, but in his mind, he's a 300 hitter. Barrett and Owen do the job at the Keystone combination and turn to double play and make the play. I really like the Boston infield.
They have the edge, Boston, you think?
I think the Mets have a little edge because of Keith Hernandez.
And you think the Mets have
I
the edge?
give the Mets an edge.
All right, let's go to the catching. We have Rich Gedman for Boston, Gary Carter for the Mets.
Well, that's a tough one. They're both outstanding catchers. The difference is going to be Carter has the power to hit the home run. Boston does not have the speed to run, which will help Carter. His throwing has been erratic all year, but he threw the big guy out when he had to do it to help win ball games like he did in the playoffs. And he blocks the ball as well as anybody in the league. He keeps the ball in front of him, and that to me is helping the team win.
Gedman throws the ball very well, is a good hitter. He'll be hitting in the middle of the lineup, actually down in the lineup a little. Cannot be forgotten. He can drive the ball out of the park. I like Rich Gedman. I think he's right in the top three, if not the number one catcher in the American League.
Who has the edge at catching?
Carter slightly because of that wall in Fenway.
That's what I agree with that.
All right, so far it's the Mets. Let's take a look at the starting pitching now. The three-man rotation for Boston: Bruce Hurst, Roger Clemens, Oil Can Boyd. The Mets may go to four: Ron Darling, Dwight Gooden, Bob Ojeda, maybe Sid Fernandez. Starting pitching, Joe.
Good and Sid Fernandez. High fastballs, curveballs off the table, take a hike. I don't care if they're pitching in a phone booth. They can win. They're strikeout pitchers. When you have a strikeout pitcher, it helps your defense. It helps the whole ball club. So when you have two men that can strike you out, you have a big, big edge in any ballpark.
I think they have a slight edge because of their depth, and that Sid Fernandez is the depth. But don't sell Bruce Hurst short. He was right neck and neck with Roger Clemens for the strikeout lead before he pulled his hamstring. He has a good move to first base, and Oil Can's off-speed stuff can neutralize that Met lineup. Roger is Roger, and I'd love to see, and I'd pay to see Clemens against Gooden.
Game two, we hope. The edge in starting pitching?
Slight edge with the New York Mets, I think, because of their depth and their versatility. Two left-handers as opposed to one.
I agree. I think the left-handers could be the big factor in the overall picture.
Even in Fenway. Well, that'll be interesting. All right, so far the edge to the Mets. When we continue on our World Series report, we'll see who has the edge with the bullpen, with a designated hitter, and with the outfield. We'll be right back.
And it is a fly ball. It'll be tough to get to. A.G. is going, and A.G. takes it down. Big catch. He's out.
And we're back with our World Series report, continuing to match up the Mets and the Red Sox. Let's now go to the outfield. And for Boston, Jim Rice, Tony Armas, Dwight Evans, Dave Henderson, the fourth outfielder. For the Mets, Mookie Wilson, Lenny Dykstra, Darryl Strawberry, their fourth outfielder, Kevin Mitchell. The Red Sox.
Well, the Red Sox have veterans with power, and Jim Rice is an outstanding hitter. Dwight Evans in a World Series after waiting since '75. He's going to be hungry, and Henderson coming off a good playoff. The Mets definitely have the speed factor. They definitely have youth and exciting Lenny Dykstra and a dynamic Darryl Strawberry. I think the key to the outfield, though, is how they play defense at Fenway Park. You have the green monster, you have a treacherous corner in center field, and you have a short right field. I think the outfield of Fenway will play a part in this World Series.
I think that the defense of how they play at Shea Stadium is going to be more important because of the fact that the Mets have the speed. They have more speed than Boston in the outfield, and we talk about they have the power, but they still have power with Strawberry. I feel that a key man in this series can be Mookie Wilson. He's an unsung player who has great talent that can bust it wide open. And when I'm talking about when he hits it in the gap, it might not just be two, it could be three, and Dykstra the same way. So they're going to have to play defense better at Shea Stadium than they do at Boston.
The edge?
I have to give the speed, and I have to go with the Mets for the edge.
I'm going to take the Boston Red Sox outfield.
All right. Finally a vote for Boston. All right, let's move ahead with our matchups now. Talk about the relief pitching. For Boston, Calvin Schiraldi, Bob Stanley, Joe Sambito. The Mets, Roger McDowell, Jesse Orosco, Rick Aguilera. Mets were awfully tough relief pitching in the playoffs.
Mets are outstanding. Relief pitching is going to be a factor when the pitcher hits. They're going to have to make decisions from the sixth inning on who's ever behind. Now, if Boston doesn't have to go to their bullpen too often, and when they go back with the DH hitting, Schiraldi will come in and throw it as hard as anybody in the game, and he can do the job. There's not going to be too much difference to me in the short series in the bullpen. It's going to depend on how they have to use the relievers when they play here at Met Stadium.
I like the Mets bullpen too, but that middle situation, Sammy Stewart, how healthy is he? Is Al Nipper going to be able to come out of the bullpen after starting all year? I think these are very key decisions, but once you get into that final 6 outs, the Mets definitely have an edge with McDowell and Orozco.
So both Mets?
I have to give the Mets an edge because of the depth.
All right, designated hitter, Don Baylor for sure. The games in Boston were the ones with a designated hitter. The Mets, well, they could use Mitchell or Heath, Mazzilli, Howard Johnson.
Well, I have to give the DH to Baylor. He knows how to do it. You know, that's not an easy thing to do. You have to be prepared mentally. You go for 2 and you want to throw your helmet or run around the clubhouse, you can do that or have a cup of coffee. But Baylor's been there. He can do it. He's the champion.
Agreed?
I agree. Don Baylor's a force, and they'll miss him when they're playing without him.
All right, the intangibles, the managers, you know something about that. The different ballparks, Mets have an extra game if it goes 7. The designated hitter, only in Boston, but not in New York. The intangibles, Chuck.
Well, the fans are going to see really three outstanding different type series. They're going to play with the pitcher hitting. They're going to play with the DH. They're going to come back and play with the pitcher hitting again. John McNamara, who managed in the National League and managed with the pitcher hitting, has done that very well, and he's managed with the DH. He's proved he's done that well. You have Davey Johnson, who managed with the DH in AAA. He knows how to do it. You have your pitchers who haven't hit all year for Boston, which sort of a disadvantage. Decisions are going to have to be made from the 6th inning on, depending on the score of the ball game. And I know one thing, that both managers are there because they have done an outstanding job, where Bobby Valentine and Chuck Tanner are watching it on TV or at the ballpark.
Intangibles from your standpoint.
Well, first off, with the managing, I think it's a lot easier to go to the DH from managing with the pitcher hitting, as Davey Johnson's doing, rather than going from the DH to the way McNamara is going. We have a cold weather factor that might come into play.
Right.
We have a fan factor that might come into play, and that, coupled with the ballpark in Fenway, is going to make, I think, a very exciting series, something that I'm waiting to start.
You know, it's interesting, in 75, there was so much talk about the wall at Fenway, and yet in the 7-game series, the 4 in Fenway, not one ball was hit off that wall. How about that stadium? It is so unique.
It's different. It's hard. But it's hard to play in any stadium, and it's hard to play in the World Series, but it's the most fun of all. That's what your dreams are.
Who's going to win this World Series, Bobby?
Boston's representing the best division in baseball. I think they're going to give the Mets a run for their money, yet the Mets are going to get the money.
I agree with Bobby. I feel that the Mets are depth-wise, quality. They have experience on their ball club, and they're going to get it.
But Boston might have to come back the way you did in 79 from 3-1. It could be.
Flip a coin,
And
man.
remember, in 75, the Reds were prohibitive favorites, and the Red Sox did give Cincinnati a run for their money. Reds won it in 7. So that's our World Series report. For Bobby Valentine, Chuck Tanner, I'm Len Berman. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the World Series, everybody.
World Series Report 86 has been sponsored by New York Helicopter.
Thank you.